You're 70 years old, and tonight they have dressed you in gold. The silk feels heavy, almost mocking. Around you, the hall flickers with the light of 100 torches, each flame bending under the breath of a whispered gossip. The air smells of roses and iron. This is supposed to be your celebration, a night honouring the queen who built an empire from ashes. But you know better. The smiles around you are too wide, the bows too slow. You sense it. The performance of loyalty before the inevitable betrayal. The musicians play something delicate, but the melody breaks against the weight of tension. You sit at the centre of it all, a throne of carved ivory beneath you, your crown gleaming like a cage. Across the banquet floor, the young minister who once called you mother raises his cup. His voice trembles with reverence as he praises your eternal grace. The court applauds. You almost laugh, because grace is the last thing they want from you now. They want surrender. They want spectacle. A herald announces the emperor's arrival, the man you raised, the man who owes you everything. You rise to greet him, slowly, painfully, every joint a reminder of the wars you survived. He does not meet your eyes. Instead, he takes his seat beside you, his silence sharper than any blade. And then, before the hall of witnesses, he gives the order. The applause dies. The music falters. He says your titles are to be stripped, your estate seized, your name erased from all records. For a moment, no one breathes. Even the flames seem to shrink. You are no longer queen. You are a woman standing alone in a room full of vultures, their hunger barely disguised. And in that silence, the humiliation begins. They do not drag you away immediately. That would have been mercy. Instead, they make you sit, through speeches, through laughter, through the slow unravelling of a legacy built over 5 decades. Every toast burns your throat. Every whispered prayer tastes like ash. You keep your eyes fixed on the table, where gold goblets reflect distorted faces, yours among them, warped and fading. The emperor smiles now, more easily, as though some great burden has been lifted. Perhaps it has. To erase the one who gave him power is to prove he no longer depends on it. Around him, nobles cheer. Servants refill cups. And you realize this is not a punishment. It's theatre. You are the entertainment, a living symbol of obedience, your degradation choreographed for applause. The man once sworn to protect your throne now orders your jewels presented to the guests as tokens of loyalty. Rings you wore at coronation are tossed into eager hands. Laughter fills the hall. Someone jokes that your crown fits the emperor's new wife better. The crowd erupts. You do not cry. Queens do not cry in public. But deep inside, something ancient fractures. When the banquet ends, the torches are doused. Darkness swallows the hall. You remain seated long after the last courtier leaves. You can still hear their laughter echoing through the marble corridors. Outside, a storm gathers. The wind howls like a warning too late to be heard. You whisper only one word, not to curse, not to plead, but to mark the moment your soul detached from the world that betrayed it. Enough. By dawn, your chambers are emptied. Servants, once loyal, now avert their eyes. The tapestries depicting your victories are torn down. Guards posted at your door wear the emperor's crest, not yours. You are allowed to keep a single attendant, a girl too young to remember your reign, too frightened to speak. When they escort you from the palace, the courtyard is filled with silence. The same nobles who once knelt before you now watch like spectators at an execution. You pass them without slowing. Each step echoes like the toll of a bell. You do not stumble. Dignity is all you have left. Beyond the gates lies the estate of exile, a crumbling fortress on the edge of the empire. They call it a place of rest. You know it for what it is, a prison made of memory. As the carriage jolts forward, you glance once more at the palace spires piercing the sky. You built those walls, you crowned that king, and this is your reward. Inside your chest, anger and sorrow entwine like smoke. But beneath them, something else begins to stir. A cold, clear resolve. They think this night has ended your story. They are wrong. History does not end with humiliation. It begins there. The fortress they send you to was once a monastery. Its walls still smell of incense and rain. The air inside is heavy with silence, as if the stones themselves remember prayers whispered centuries ago. You're shown to a narrow room, a bed, a table, a single window barred with iron. Outside, a dying garden sways in the wind, roses tangled with thorns, like a metaphor crafted by a cruel poet. Days become indistinguishable. Morning light spills across the floor like a faded crown. Servants bring food but never speak. You begin to measure time through decay, how quickly the candle shortens, how slowly the air grows colder. At night, you hear footsteps. You are never sure if they belong to guards or ghosts, but silence is not empty. It listens, it remembers, and it begins to whisper your past back to you. Every triumph, every betrayal, every decision that brought you here. You see faces in the dark. The husband you outlived, the generals you commanded, the son you raised to rule. Their eyes are not accusing. They are waiting for you to understand the pattern that binds all power to its eventual collapse. In the stillness of exile, truth becomes unbearable. You realize that humiliation was never about punishment. It was inheritance. Every ruler before you faced it in some form. The moment the empire turned inward and devoured its own blood to survive. You remember how you silenced dissent, how you demanded obedience, how you mistook fear for respect. You were not innocent. None of them are. But knowing that does not ease the pain. It sharpens it. Because now you see the cycle for what it is. Endless, indifferent, devouring the strong and the weak alike. You wonder if your son understands this yet. Perhaps he will, when his own courtiers smile too easily. Outside, the first snow falls. You stand by the window, watching flakes dissolve against the bars. They melt before reaching the ground like promises made by kings. One night, you awaken to the sound of footsteps. A shadow lingers at your door. You expect a guard, perhaps a messenger. Instead, a young woman enters and the emperor's new wife, draped in white, her face veiled, her hands trembling. She bows deeply, but not from respect, from guilt. She tells you the truth. The emperor's decision was not his alone. The court demanded your removal. The nobles feared your influence, your memory, your legend. He had no choice, she whispers. You laugh, a dry, hollow sound. There is always a choice, you say. She weeps. You do not comfort her. Pity is a luxury of the unbroken. When she leaves, you sit in silence again, listening to the echo of your own words. And for the first time, you realize they are not for her. They are for you. Time softens everything except shame. It stays sharp, untouched by age. You begin to write, not for history but for memory. On scraps of parchment smuggled by sympathetic servants, you record the truth as you saw it, not as they will tell it. You know these pages will never reach the world beyond the walls. Still, you write. Because silence is the final victory of those who humiliate. Each word becomes an act of defiance. You write of power, of loyalty bought and sold, of the ease with which love becomes duty and duty becomes ruin. You write until your fingers tremble, until ink stains your hands like blood. And when you finally stop, you read the first line aloud, a confession, a warning, a prayer. The cost of obedience is always a woman's name forgotten. Weeks later, you are summoned. A messenger stands at your door, pale and nervous. He brings news. The empire trembles. Rebellion in the west, famine in the north, the people whispering your name again. The emperor demands you remain silent, unseen, erased. The irony almost makes you smile. The more they try to bury you, the deeper your shadow grows. You ask the messenger his name. He hesitates. I am no one, he says. You study his face, young, uncertain, terrified. You tell him something he will never forget. No one, you whisper, is how every tyrant begins. That night you burn your writings, not out of fear, but faith. Words, once released, do not die in flame. They scatter like ash, invisible, inescapable. By spring, rumours spread that the emperor is ill. The courtiers who once laughed at your fall now whisper that the gods punish him for his betrayal. You do not rejoice. You have learned that vengeance brings no warmth, only more cold. Still, you sense the balance shifting. Power is a tide. It recedes even from those who believe themselves immortal. You watch the horizon through the bars, the sun rising over the ruined garden. The roses have returned, pale and fragile. You close your eyes and breathe, not as a queen, not as a prisoner, but as a woman who has finally understood what it means to lose everything and remain whole. Years pass. The world beyond your exile continues its performance of order. Courtiers marry, generals rise and fall. The empire grows fat on memory, pretending it no longer remembers your name. But history has a way of bleeding through the cracks of denial. The common people whisper your story in markets and temples. They call you the queen who knelt and did not break. One night, a soldier arrives, wounded and trembling. He claims to have fought under your banners long ago. They told us you were dead, he says. They lied. You study his face, eyes hollow, hands trembling from too many winters of war. He falls to his knees, not as a subject but as a man begging the past for forgiveness. You raise him gently. Lies are how empires breathe, you say. Do not waste your breath trying to silence them. After he leaves, you sit by the window listening to the wind scraping the old walls. You realize something simple and terrifying. The empire does not need to kill you to erase you. It only needs to keep living without you. In the capital, festivals continue in your absence. They rename palaces. They replace your portraits. But no new queen can wear your crown without feeling its weight. Even through rumour, your legacy unsettles the living. You become a ghost haunting the conscience of a kingdom. Meanwhile, the emperor grows paranoid. He orders spies to track the whispers. Priests are commanded to preach obedience. The irony is exquisite. He fears the silence he created. In exile, you receive fragments of news from loyal servants. The emperor's alliances crumble. His ministers plot against him. The gods, they say, have turned their faces away. You feel neither joy nor pity, only inevitability. You know what comes next. You taught him the lesson he refused to learn, that power devours itself from within. One morning, the garden blooms again. The air smells of earth and rain, and for a brief moment, the world feels alive. You sit among the roses, tracing the scars on your hands. A bee lands on your finger, fragile and fearless. You do not move. For the first time in years, you feel peace. Not forgiveness, not redemption, but the quiet acceptance that history's cruelty cannot erase meaning. You understand now that humiliation, like glory, becomes myth, and myths outlive kings. As the sun rises over your forgotten prison, you whisper to the wind, "If they will not remember me with honour, they will remember me with truth."